Welcome to MUFON Midwest, where we discuss some of the most interesting UFO, UAP sightings in the heartland. MUFON field investigators and eyewitnesses share their amazing experiences with the public on this podcast. And now, here's your host for MUFON Midwest, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to MUFON Midwest. And this evening we have a good show for you. Of course, I'd like to invite you to visit the Central Region MUFON website at MUFONCentralRegion.org, where you can see all the information about our different states, our state directors, assistant state directors, and other officers, and what we have going on in the region. So you'll get list of meetings, etc., and you can sign up for the newsletter there. We do send out a monthly newsletter with announcements about all of the meetings going on in the region. This evening, I have a very special guest. Steve Hudgeons is the Director of Investigations for International MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. Tonight, he shares the history of MUFON and what the organization does today with regards to investigating UFOs, UAPs, and USOs. So to report a sighting, visit www.mufon.com. Steve was born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1950. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1969 and served until 1974. He spent 4 months in Europe each year and 1 month in the Cuba area each year for 4.5 years. Steve was a gunner's mate E5 on a destroyer named the USS New DD 818, stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. After the Navy, Steve began a long-time career in commercial construction, installing aluminum frames and glass in commercial buildings such as high-rises, as well as schools and small buildings. He later advanced to selling jobs and drawing blueprints, then became an OSHA safety officer. He retired at the age of 65. Steve served as the past president of his neighborhood advisory council and has been a member of the Citizens on Patrol with the Fort Worth Police Department for 23 years. Steve has been a MUFON member for 34 years. He's married to his wife, Linda, and their 50th anniversary is next month. Steve has 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Hello, glad to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you could join me this evening. One of the reasons, of course, is to just let people know everything that MUFON does, because everyone in the world doesn't know about MUFON. So I thought we'd share that. But let's get started with how you got interested in the UFO subject.
Well, it started a long time ago when I was a kid, something like about, 9 or 10 years old, something like that. And I was always hanging around my grandmother's house, and I noticed that she had this newspaper there she got every month. There's the National Enquirer. And so I started reading into that, and there's some of the weirdest stories are in that newspaper. It had stories about Bigfoot and ghosts and aliens and just all kinds of things like that. And of course, I didn't know anything about that, but I was fascinated by the entire thing. And some of the stories that they were talking about in there, like for the Bigfoot, for instance, these stories were back in the days of the Indians, when the Indians were around, and the stories talked about how the Bigfoot would come in there and take off with the Indian women. And I was always wondering about that. I guess Bigfoot needed somebody to cook their food or something. I don't know, but I had no idea what that was all about. But it was just on and on and on, and people with ghosts and things of that nature. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you saw articles about UFOs, and that just piqued your interest?
Yes. I saw articles about UFOs, and
Okay.
I don't remember any photographs or anything like that was going on. If they had any, it wasn't anything that was really spectacular. Almost like what we're putting up with now. There's just hardly anything in there that's just, like good evidence. It's just usually a bird or reflection on a window. It's kind of awkward.
So have you seen a UFO yourself?
I have never seen anything that I would say was a UFO. But there was, well, since you brought that up, there was one time that when I was in the Navy, we were underway out in the Atlantic Ocean, and when you're underway like that, you take turns. You have watches all over where you place, like a port starboard watch and after watch, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was on the bridge this one time, and the radar guy he called up to the bridge and said that there was an object following us in the ocean, and it was kind of weird because the after lookout didn't say anything about it, and you're supposed to report anything you see. And I mean, you can see stuff away. It's like 6 or 7 miles away. If it has a light on it, you can see it. So mm-hmm. the officer of the deck asked me to go back there and look. So I went back there, and there was nothing there. But the radarman said, yeah, there is something there. So we just kept on going. But the captain, or the officer of the deck, he started making turns. Like he'd go to port, then he'd stop, going that way, and then he'd turn it back and go this way. And the object was following us. The radar was hitting the beam on it, was following us. So the officer deck says, okay, increase 20 knots. So we sped up a little bit, and the object sped up with us. So we slowed down, it slowed down. And this went on for about an hour, and there was nothing there. We didn't see anything. And then after about an hour of that kind of stuff, then all of a sudden the radar picked up, said they just flew off to the port side, and it just took off and left. So I don't know what that was. They said, well, I guess it was a radar glitch or something. So I don't know. We didn't see anything out there.
So were they able to tell how high this object was, or how far away?
It was just above the water. It wasn't in the water. It was just above the water. They say some kind of airplane out there flying around. Well, I don't know. I didn't see it. Nobody else did either.
So what did you think? Did you think that it was an invisible object?
I just went along with the radar thing. It says a radar glitch. Nothing else I could say it was.
Did anybody approach you and say, keep quiet about it, don't talk about it?
No, nobody ever said anything about that.
Okay, because I know
that would have got my attention, but no.
Some cases do involve people being told to be quiet. So
that's true. It happened.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen any of that so far.
Okay.
Anyway.
So you were fairly young when you got interested in UFOs. When you're in the Navy, there's a possible UFO connection. And then how does one become an OSHA safety officer? And the reason I ask is because I own a contracting business, and we've dealt with them. So.
Oh yeah, there's something. All right. The company I was working for, we started working on these very large buildings, and they required that anybody working on the job had to have an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 30, and that's 10 hours or 30-hour classes.
Right.
And so it cost a lot of money, like $1,500 each. And so my boss, I've known him for a long time, he says, I want you to get on the internet and I want you to figure out how you can become an OSHA outreach trainer. So I said, okay. So I had to take a course. It was, I forget how many hours it was, a 50-hour course or something like that, but he paid for it. And it was an online course. And then you take a test and you pass the test and you become an outreach trainer. And you have to, every couple of years, you have to be retrained again. And that always cost about $300, which that's not bad. And so I did that for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, but that's what you have to do. You have to get in there, and it's called OSHA Outreach Trainer. Look that up and you'll see what it looks at.
Okay. Well, I do understand that because I had to send all my men to OSHA 10-hour training. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Now that wasn't the word that they used when they described it to me.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I even took it one year myself online.
Yeah.
So just to keep up with everything. And know what we needed to do and be compliant, because you never know when OSHA's coming around.
That's true. That's one thing about it. I always
Yeah.
had a vest on that had reflective vest and all that says OSHA outreach on the OSHA trainer on the outside of that kind of crap. And I could walk on the job, and I didn't have to go into the building or anything. The the uh, the people running the job usually have trailer houses outside, and usually I just go in there and say, "Hey, where's all my guys working?" And then well, what company you with? And I tell them, and then but now that when I had that vest on, I could just walk into the building that they were working on, and the superintendent would come and run me down on who I was and who I was looking for, because I had OSHA all over my vest. And so it didn't take me long, but it's kind of funny as you're
Yeah.
walking through the job, you can hear things that are falling, like screws and tools and stuff like that, because they see me and they're trying to straighten stuff up. That's kind of funny. But
Oh, well, yeah, because OSHA has so many regulations. That's a whole nother show. So we'll
oh
leave it there
yes, it is.
because this is a MUFON show tonight. Um, so why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of MUFON, how it got started?
Well, okay, let's see. Let me talk about how I got interested in UFO subject for a minute. I was, like I say, always interested in the UFO subjects because it was more curious to me than Bigfoot and a ghost and stuff like that. Because that people try to fake the Bigfoot thing all the time, and I was even doing it when I was in high school. We were putting Bigfoot tracks all over the beach, but I mean, nobody had a picture. Nobody had a picture, or I tell people, I said, look, if you're gonna show me one picture of Bigfoot, I said, if I saw Bigfoot, I can push the button on my cell phone and take 100 pictures in about 2 seconds. So I don't want to see just one photo. But anyway, I was talking to my sister about a UFO subject, UFO subject that was in the paper, a newspaper or whatever. And she says, "Oh, you like UFOs?" I said, "Well, yeah." She said, "Well, you need to join MUFON." I said, "MUFON? What's that?" She said, "Mutual UFO Network." I said, "Okay, well, how do I join?" She says, "Well, you have to know somebody to get in." I said, "Well, I don't know anybody can get in." She says, "Well, I do." And she knew the state director in Oklahoma, and that's how I got into it. He got me a membership uh, thing to fill out and send it. It was only like about $25. But anyway, I joined MUFON. And I'm sitting there, oh boy, I'll get to go see UFOs and go to meetings and all this kind of thing. And a whole year passed, and no meetings, no nothing. I just got the monthly journal. That's it. So I said, well, I need to do something about this. So I got the field investigator's manual and took the test. And it took about 6 months. Nothing still happened. So I was about ready to get up. I was getting upset, and I was about ready to throw it in the trash. And all of a sudden, I got an email. It says, we're having a MUFON meeting in Dallas, and I was invited. And I was all, yes, sir. I was the first one over there to get into it. So I went into the meeting, and I looked around, and all 5 of us were there. And I looked around, and I found out I was the only field investigator. So that kind of made me understand why the group was not contacting me. But about the time that I joined to begin with, they had a big fight over here at the MUFON DFW area, and they had a big, large falling out, and everybody went in every direction. So they had to basically start over. But as far as the history of MUFON, it officially began on May 31st in 1969. At that time, it was known as the Midwest UFO Network. And as it outgrew the Midwestern state boundaries, it became a world-class UFO organization. And the name was changed to Mutual UFO Network. That allowed the MUFON thing to remain as the organization matured. Then about a year later, Walt Andrews Jr. Became the MUFON director, and he held that position until he retired around the year 2000. And John Schuessler took it over as the director, And John retired in about 2006, and James Carrion became the director. James Carrion resigned at the end of 2009. Clifford Cliff became the director. And he resigned in 2012, and that's when David McDonald took it over. Then about, let's see, around 2013, the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas, the leadership of MUFON changed again. 7 years after that, in 2020, David McDonald was chosen again for the second time to lead. And he's still running the show, and he's great at what he does. He's the businessman and knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does.
Yes, he's good. Me and Dave, we go back a long time, and nothing wrong with him.
How many members do you think there are currently in MUFON?
That's a good question, because I very seldom get a members list, so I don't know. I know there's probably a total of about 650 field investigators worldwide, something of that nature. So
I think
they're all members. So I don't know about.
Yeah, no, I think the membership is over 4,000. The last
that's probably true. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And in multiple countries as well.
Yes.
Worldwide.
Yeah, I don't know the number in worldwide, but it's like I don't know. I don't think there's any more than 10.
So after if a person sees a UFO, they go to MUFON.com to file the report. What happens after that? Whoops, lost you, Steve.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. Did you hear me?
Yeah, it went blank there for a minute.
Okay. So what happens after a person files a report at MUFON?
Okay, when a person files a report at MUFON, the CMS administrators look at it and send it off to the director of the state where the event took place. And then the state director assigns it to a field investigator, and the field investigator, and they set up some kind of an arrangement for an interview. And the interview doesn't last that long unless there's some kind of evidence that's along there, or if it's an actual UFO that landed or something of that nature. And then the report is filled out by the field investigator, and then he has it approved by the state director, and then it just goes into our CMS system.
So if a person files, they will be contacted by an investigator by phone or email in some fashion.
Yes.
And so they'll be speaking to a live person. And then the investigator, let's say there's a case and there's a sighting of a UFO that's it's a large object and it's nearby, it's within 500 feet. People get a good look at it. What kind of research would an investigator do in order to determine what type of an object that was?
Well, we have flight radar and other things that we can look at, weather reports and stuff of that nature that we look at and compare notes on all of it. And especially the flight radar, we can find out if there's any aircraft in the area. Like, it's they hide pretty good in clouds and things of that nature. And it's kind of funny. That just made me think of something. Yeah, I had one of my Navy friend, my good buddy, Fred Tabler. He lived in Ohio. I was in Texas, and he's always telling me about the UFO objects that he has around his house and farm. He lives out in the country area. And I was talking to him one day on the telephone, and he says, "Yeah, there's a UFO flying south of us right now." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah." So I opened up Flight Radar 24 and looked at it, and there was an airplane going south of him. And I said, all of a sudden the airplane turned and went north. And I said, "That object didn't start and go north, did it?" And he said, "Yeah, it sure did. How'd you know?" I said, "Well, that's the airplane you're looking at." And that made him mad.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Sometimes we run into the cases where they're ongoing cases. People have continual sightings. And then at a certain point, almost everything is a UFO. And they may have really seen a bona fide unknown object to start with, but after that, after a while, people are really on the lookout for them. They're on high alert or something. And then there are a few people who really get upset if you have investigate and tell them it's something mundane. Why do you think that is?
Because you're making it up. You're not believing what I'm saying. And yes, yeah, they get upset.
Mm-hmm. They do. They do.
There's a lot of photographs that are birds, and
yeah,
people, you see the side of a bird with the wings shut, and it looks just like what a UFO might look like. But people just don't understand that when a bird flies, it doesn't fly with the wings out. They're flapping all the time, and they're doing it pretty fast. So for you to catch a bird in flight with the wings out, that's very seldom. And people just don't really realize that, I guess. I don't know.
What are some of the most common objects that are misidentified as UFOs?
Birds, for one thing, and I've got a lot of photographs of when people look out a window and they have a lighted object there that's flying, it's going by, or not. Well, it's not moving because it's a stationary photo. And there was one photo there. It's 3 rings. This looked like 3 rings, flying saucers out there in front of it. And they found out later that that was a reflection of the lights in his roof, not a roof, but a ceiling. Is what he was just taking a picture out of the window of the
right,
what's out there. And when he developed it, oh look, there's what these lights. But that's something else you have to watch out for, is reflections in glass. And it happens all the time.
Oh, I remember a case a few years ago that went pretty viral. And it was, they taking pictures out a window, and it looked like there were UFOs out there. And it turns out that there were lights in the room with them that were on, and they were in the shape of UFOs. It kind of looked like that. But it appeared that they were outside the windows. So, yeah, that's a common thing. I've always
told people, I said, look, if there's UFOs out there, they're going to be invisible, because they're not going to fly over the Planet of the Apes, maybe get their vehicle damaged where they can't get back home. I said, what you're seeing out there flying around is probably our own stuff. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. So, well, of course, our technology is so advanced now. What they let us know about is 50 years after the fact. Supposedly, that's what they say. So it's hard to imagine what kind of technology our government has now.
I know. That's true. They don't want us to know. They'd rather have chasing UFOs.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the most common shapes of UFOs that people see?
Here lately, they're seeing these, what you call them? I forget now what you call them. It's the long, slender ones. Look so like submarines with no fins on them. The ones look like big pills that are going down.
Tic Tacs.
Tic Tacs, yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. That's the one that's kind of the most common, but that's what everybody's talking about now. So that helps it too. But someone told me one time that was those shapes are designed after from submarines. They made these strong ships, and they made them round because submarine has a round, and it takes a lot to mash it. In other words, so they're making these Tic Tacs, and because they're stronger, and which that sounds about right, but we don't know.
Well, yeah, the circular shape is stronger. I know that's why they make the transport trucks that are carrying liquids. They make the ends round, like the Tic Tac shape, really long.
That's right.
Yeah. And the only reason I know that is because I knew someone who built those. But anyway.
Oh, all right.
Okay, well, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back right after these messages.
Okay.
Welcome back. I'm Margie Kay, and this is MUFON Midwest. And my guest tonight is Steve Hudgeons. He's the Director of Investigations at MUFON. Steve, how did you get started in MUFON, and what positions have you held?
Oh, let's see. When I joined and got into the DFW MUFON meetings when they started back up, it was Ken Sherry. I think after a year, he took over, and between me and him, we started creating. We had a bunch of people that we probably had about 50 people coming to the meetings after a while, and of course I was a field investigator by then, and then Ken Sherry became state director, and between him and me, we just started doing everything in the world that was going on, investigating cases and things, and I don't know how many I have. I've had about 1,700 cases or something like that, from here to around the world, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a good number.
Yeah, and so I got into it that way, and just never got out of it. I mean, I just kind of liked what was going on, and even when I was doing all that work, construction, everything else I was doing, I didn't stop doing any of that, and it just went on from there. I've been section director, chief investigator, assistant state director, and I became Ken left, and I became state director. Then the next thing I know, I went to over in Dallas. I met Dave McDonald over in Dallas, and we had coffee and ate dinner, that kind of thing. He just came to Dallas for, I don't know what he came for, but anyway, we were heading back out, and he says, I think I'm going to see if I can get you on the board. And I said, well, I don't really want to be on the board. I'd have to go all those board meetings, and it costs a lot of money. I can't really afford to do that. I said, but I tell you what I'd like to do. And he says, what's that? I'd like to be the director of investigations. He thought about that for a minute, and he said, okay, let me think that one over. And about a week later, he asked me if I wanted to do it or not, because I forget there was a woman, I forget what her name was. She either quit or they got rid of her. But anyway, I became the director of investigations after that, and I've been basically doing it since then. It's just been a long time.
Well, with all those investigations you've done, and then also that you oversee, you see so much come across your desk that other investigators are handling, but you know about them. What are some of the strangest sightings that people have reported that are credible?
To go back and look at all the cases like that, I look at basically how they're completed, the dispositions.
Mm-hmm.
I use a method of making sure everybody's not getting too extreme on their dispositions, like too many information only cases, that sort of thing. And I have a percentage of what they should be by using the dispositions of the entire CMS. And that's what I look at most of the time, unless somebody's asking me to go look at something. Then I'll go look at it and give them my opinion. But as far as I can tell, there's not really anything that's really causing the hats to blow off. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff that's just kind of normal.
So you can't think of any credible sightings? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, we had the Stephenville event that I would have to say was kind of credible, because there were 5 police officers that were involved. And
yeah,
they're the ones that they were on duty in Stephenville, and they weren't together. They were around Stephenville, around the city itself. And that's when they saw what I called the flying Walmart. It was an object that was half a mile by a mile, and it was going slowly, very slowly, over downtown Stephenville. And then after a while, it just, well, I say after a while, after a few minutes, it just took off. And what we found out about the Stephenville event, we had a big event down there, a big meeting, and oh man, there were so many people showed up in that building that we had to stop them from coming in because too many people were coming in. It was like 500 and something people.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was that most of what they saw down there over the years were balls of light, large balls of light or fire or whatever you want to call it or whatever it was. And that's what they were seeing most of the time. And that's when we found out that the entire area around Stephenville is a training zone for all of the jet aircraft for the military. They're always around the area. And we've also found out that there was 9,000 different types of those radar bombs that they blast out, and it causes missiles to go to them. I forget what I forget what you call them. There's 9,000 different kinds of those, and we kind of figured that that's what everybody was seeing. Is at nighttime these jets flying by and they're dropping these flares, and after that we couldn't see anything after that. But there was one person had a photo of something that was completely different. This was a photo. It was at night, and it was a photo of had 4 or 5 just lights, and they weren't moving. Of course, there's a photograph, but it was like 5 lights going like up and down, and it was like a straight line, and nobody could figure out what that was. But this one, the reason I'm talking about that because one night after I came back from Stephenville, I went by the Air Force Base out here, and Carswell Air Force Base, and I was going around from the south of the base there, and I looked north, and I saw the same thing in that photograph. It was 4 or 5 lights straight in a line, and I realized that was aircraft coming in on a landing, and they were taking one after the next, kind of lining up to land. And I think that's what they were doing out there in the field. They were lining up on an object, practice their landing approaches. So that kind of explains what that was. And nobody else had a photograph like that at all. But this flying Walmart thing flew by, and if the police officers hadn't have seen it, I would just say, oh yeah, somebody just made that up. But no, the police officers, and they didn't want to be have their name put out there that they saw something like that. So we kept all that to ourselves. But they didn't want to get fired, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Pilots and police, they keep their mouths shut. And military, for that matter. I've talked to a lot of ex-military who come forward after they're out a little bit. What about that case in 2020 in January with the huge triangular craft that started in Missouri, and they tracked it for hours? Police, firemen tracking it, and then it went over to Illinois for quite some time. And they had all kinds of police seeing that. It was flying very low, very silent, and very large.
I haven't even seen that report.
Oh, that's a big one. That made the news, and it's been in documentaries. Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest ones.
I haven't seen that one.
I'll tell you what my personal opinion is. It was something of ours.
Right.
One of our, Air Force, some military craft. And it almost kind of, as low as it was and as slow and silent, and all these police cars are chasing it, it was almost like it was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of freaking people out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But who knows? Who knows what it was? Because I don't even remember how people lost sight of it. I'm going to have to look that up, but yeah.
All the lights went off.
Yeah, and then there are cases where people actually see extraterrestrials or interdimensional, something that's non-human. What are your thoughts on that?
Anything is possible, but I have yet to see any kind of evidence on it. You know, that this out there, unless you want to cut off one of his fingers, or that's something of that nature. But I doubt if they'd let you do that. But that
Yeah.
they would probably expect something of that nature, and just make sure you're kind of where you can't move and keep their distance or whatever. And that's usually mind control anyway. That's controlling what you're doing.
Yeah, they definitely have the upper hand. They're definitely higher intelligent, and yeah, people involved they're lucky if they do remember anything. Usually they can't move. They might be able to move their eyes to watch things that are going on. But then there are some people who don't get frozen and who have some type of ongoing contact, and they might see the same type of entities over and over again. I know, people like Kathleen Martin have seen them throughout their lives. Quite a few, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but I'm of the opinion that they are interdimensional, that these are beings that are in the same space as we are. It's just in a higher dimension, and they're not traveling millions of light years away to get here. What are your thoughts on that?
That's very possible. I mean, we don't know how to do that, so that doesn't mean it can't be done. But yes, that's very possible. I've never seen anything that I would say, yeah, there it is. I've never seen anything like that. I tell you what, since you brought that up, I remember back, let's see, I was about 17 or 18, and my friends, that we always had friends, and friends that were on the block there, they moved out north of Fort Worth, and they wanted me to go out there, spend the weekend with them in their house, and they lived with their mother and all that kind of thing, their dad. And so I went out there, and we played dominoes and all kinds of stuff. Then it got time to go to bed. We went to bed. I had a bedroom in there all by myself. And I always bring this up because it's the only weird event I've ever had. But here I was trying to go to sleep, and I finally went to sleep. And then there was a large noise woke me up. And I'm in the bed in that room all by myself. But this large noise woke me up, and what it reminded me of was like a stack of pots and pans, like fell off the table and hit the floor. You know, just made a large crash.
Mm-hmm.
And there was their parents were there, and the bedroom next to me, and there was 3 other boys, and they were spread out through the house. And I said, well, there's probably somebody in there trying to cook up something for snacks for after midnight or something. But I never heard anybody get up. And so I said, oh, well, I'm just going to forget about it. But I put my head back down. And all of a sudden I heard, this was an old house. And all of a sudden I heard the floors kind of creaking. And they were like going down the wall there toward my door. There's a large dining room, living room type thing. And I said, these guys they're going to run in here and scare me. That's what they're going to do. I was getting ready for them. And the door had one of those old diamond looking doorknobs, those old kind. And I could hear they whoever it was walked over to the door and stopped. And then I heard that door knob turning real slow.
Oh, dear.
And I said, yeah, they're going to yank that door open and come running here screaming. So all of a sudden, I didn't hear the door open, but this is Texas in the summertime, and it's like 90 degrees, 85, something like that at night, summertime, and all of a sudden, I felt like someone opened up the door of a freezer, and all this cold air just rushed in. This house didn't have central air; it was an old house. It had these other water window units for the water, old kind of the water on them. And I knew immediately that cold air is associated with ghosts.
Yes.
So I shut my eyes. I did not want to see what was coming in that door. And it was not making any screaming, wasn't making any noise, wasn't doing anything. And I started hearing this thumping noise in my head, thump, 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 thump. And I said, man, what in the world is that? And I had my arms around my chest, and I could feel my heart beating. And I was afraid. I was scared to death about this ghost coming in here is going to get me and take me out of here, whatever. And that's all I remember. I woke up the next morning. I jumped up out of the bed. They're all in there eating breakfast and stuff like that. I jumped out, ran in there. I was looking around, and they looked at me. Hey, it's about time you got up. And I said, well, did y'all hear anything strange last night? No. You didn't hear any big crash or anything? No. Well, who got up first? One of the boys said, I did. You see any dishes or anything around the floor? No. And I said, okay. So I just let it ride. And after that, I started having dreams of a box kite flying in the air at night with lights surrounding the edge of it. Red and white lights and stuff like that. And this is out in the farm, like farm acres and nothing around. And I would have dreams of that. And then after that, I joined the Navy, and we're back on the back of the ship, and everybody's starting to tell ghost stories and stuff like that. So I remembered mine. I started telling them about that. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, well, wait a minute. I said, if my heart is beating on my chest and beating through my brain, that means my adrenaline is really flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And if my adrenaline is flowing, how come I went to sleep?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about that night.
Yeah, that's a strange one, because it could be paranormal, it could be UFO.
It could be anything. And I had that dream about the flying kite for a long time, but after that, it quit. I'm getting cold chills now just telling you this.
You'll probably have that dream again tonight, Steve.
I hope not.
Oh my goodness. Like a flying kite.
Like that's a box kite, just fly.
A box kite.
Kind of floating around up there.
I
didn't go back out that house again. Forget that.
Have you ever been regressed?
No. I asked Travis Walton about that. About it being regressed. And he says, no. And when I was talking to him, he says, no, I haven't been regressed. He said, I don't think I want to do that. And I said, oh, why not? He says, well, I think that I died and they brought me back. So if I get regressed, I might die while I'm being regressed. I said, okay, I understand that. Yeah, okay. So no, I have not been regressed.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that once you're regressed, then you find out what happened, and then you can't ever forget it. So some people don't want to deal with whatever it was.
Well, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it too.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned it.
I've been regressed a couple of times, but I quit just for that reason, because I don't want to see anymore.
I went on a little voyage with the UFO hunters one time. One weekend they went to the Aurora Cemetery here north of Fort Worth, and they had a ground piercing radar set up, and they did a ground piercing radar event over the grave of the alien that's supposed to be in the Aurora Cemetery.
Right.
And they also took the little building that was on top of the well on the property there, where it was supposed to hold the UFO parts that were picked up. They're supposed to have thrown them down the well. And so they pulled off the little building over there. And I ran over it real quick, took a picture down there, because I didn't want them saying, no, there's nothing there, but there was nothing there. There's nothing down that well. So there's that. But the interesting thing that I saw about that area where this supposed UFO crashed, almost 100 years ago, if not that long. But there's no grass for about an area that I would say probably a Oh, about a 20-yard rocks, but there's grass everywhere else. So I thought that's kind of strange. But that's about
Yeah,
it.
that is strange. And we should mention that if there is evidence left behind, a lot of evidence gets sent to the MUFON lab in St. Louis,
Yes.
where Lynn Mann is the director of the lab, and Melvin Bickel, the CI for Missouri, has stepped up as a lab assistant, and he's learning how to do a lot of testing.
That's good.
Because Lynn has been kind of overwhelmed. There's been a lot of evidence sent to the lab. One in particular that I know of was one of my cases, and she was able to lift fingerprints off of a CPAP machine.
Really?
And they came back as non-human.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's one of my best cases. I need to write that up for the MUFON Journal because it's a good one. Yeah, there was a lot going on there. We had film evidence, bright lights coming in the window, and then the man hanging on, and then the woman, his wife, from her bedroom down the hall saw an ET come out of his room, and pretty wild. Very credible people too.
Which kind of ET was it? Did they say?
I believe she said they were the typical grays.
Okay.
3 to 4 feet tall. Pretty short. What are some of the most common ETs that people claim to see?
The grays.
Yeah. Are they all the little ones or the taller ones?
It's the little ones first, and the taller ones are the ones when they get on the ship. The taller ones are the ones that's come in and do the procedures, medical procedures, whatever it is. So I guess the taller ones are smarter than the little ones.
Yeah. I'd say the weirdest ones to me are the mantis.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
The reptilians.
Yeah, and the reptilians, a 7 and 9 foot tall ET that looks like a reptile or a mantis insect.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see any of those.
Those are strange.
They wouldn't want to see me either, because everywhere I go, I pack my gun. So hey.
Well, if they're interdimensional, I don't suppose that would do any good. But if they're in 3D, it would.
I know. Yes.
Yeah. I've been when I go out on investigations anymore, I'm always packing as well.
Of course. I carry a 1911 45. I use that in the Navy. I'm pretty good with it.
Oh, that's good. I carry a 38 special. I'm not that great with it unless you're really close to me.
Oh, there was a woman that asked me one time. She says, "I'm thinking about buying a gun," and I said, "Well, I tell you what. I said, if you buy a gun, get it, and go somewhere and have someone teach you how to use it, how to shoot it, what to expect, and all that kind of thing." She says, "Well, why? All you got to do is just pull the trigger." And I said, "Well, there's more to it than that. The gun, if you don't hold it just right, it'll fall out of your hand, and it might hit the ground and go off again and shoot you. So you need to do that." And she did. She finally did, and she thanked me for telling her that.
You do have to know how to handle the gun.
Oh yeah.
And I've got my one of our field investigators in Kansas City, Jean Walker. She was the first one to get a gun, and she goes every Wednesday to practice at a range. Yep.
Well, she's using a lot of money on bullets.
Yeah, well, practice bullets, but nonetheless, yeah. But she's a good shot. I'm a good shot with a rifle, but not with a handgun. It makes me feel safer though if I have it. So.
Right.
Yeah, but you do, and one thing people should know is that investigators don't go out in the field by themselves. There's always 2 or more investigators.
Yeah, it should be at least 2.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and telling us about MUFON and a little bit about your history and also your paranormal and UFO encounters. Who knows what they were?
That's right. I'm telling who it is. No telling what did it. I had someone show me a picture of a Bigfoot, and he was afraid, and he was in the back seat of his car, and he was looking over the back seat and over the hood, and this Bigfoot was doing what I call a Kilroy. All you see is the top of his nose and his eyeballs and his head, top of his head. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why would a 8 or 10 foot Bigfoot get down on his hands and knees and peek over the car hood? And then he showed me another picture of the window in the back there. It had looked like just a smeary, I don't know if it was liquid spit or whatever on his window. And he said, that's where the Bigfoot put his nose and rubbed his nose on it. And I said, did you get a sample? He goes, no, I did take it to the car wash and washed it off.
Oh,
yeah, that's what
I hate that when that happens. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
People do that sort of thing.
There goes the DNA sample.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I run into that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't think about collecting evidence until after the fact, it seems. I've done several cases like that where, I had evidence, but I wanted to get rid of it. That's the thing. They didn't want the event to happen in the first place. Then they want to get rid of anything so they don't think about it.
Yes, that's true. It kind of makes you wonder why they even made a report.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I find interesting is that people forget. They forget details very quickly. So it's really important to report a sighting right away to MUFON, because MUFON will investigate and, put everything in there that you remember. So do it as soon after the sighting as you possibly can.
And MUFON's going to ask you all of those hard questions.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we are. Well, thank you so much, Steve. And I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Okay. Keep me on your list.
I will do that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you here again next week.